Skeps fam, and welcome back to our March special. Today's YouTube video is going to be about keeping your identity. So as we grow up and we experienced undergraduate school, graduate school, and now working in our professions, we find that different aspects of our identity are being kind of questioned every day, right? So we're Muslim, we're American, we're Palestinian, we're women, all different identities that honestly you feel like are constantly pressured every day. So we thought it would be fun to have a quick little talk about how we try to find the balance between keeping our identities while still being true to ourselves and our own morals and values and ideas. So ladies, what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on keeping your identity, how you juggle it, and how you still find time to pursue everything else in life?
I think identity is very interesting because each person identifies with what they find most important.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's you find your religion the most important, then I'll identify as a Muslim or a Christian or whatever each person's religion is. Whether it's your gender, because maybe that's what you're always struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a woman, maybe in the workforce, that's always what's being questioned. So like you'll identify as a woman first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, I guess, individualistic on how you perceive yourself and how you identify yourself.
That's interesting. I also feel like when it comes to identity and the things that we identify with, it's like what you were saying about things that you have to feel like you have to fight for
And defend.
Yeah, and like defend. So it's so easy to not associate yourself or identify with something that's so easy for you.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe like your Islam, like your religion. I feel like that's something I always number one thing that I identify with. It's like I'm Muslim, and one is because it's something that's really important to me. But
Yeah.
also I feel like that's like what's out there, what people perceive, and it could be sometimes a struggle depending on like who you're with. Like when you're in school or the workplace, and like your values are different than what's being taught, or you're gonna need to be like, oh, I have to go pray, and just like, are you gonna identify with that and let them know about that?
Yeah, definitely. Have you guys ever heard like the running joke where if you ever meet a Palestinian, you'll know they're Palestinian?
Yeah.
Like, Palestinians always
Oh
identify
my
so
God.
hard, and it's true to what you're saying though. It's because we feel like it's something that's constantly being questioned and constantly being attacked. So we make sure that we emphasize, like when people ask where we are, we're like, oh, we're from Palestine. Like some people have never even been to Palestine, but
Like,
if you're Palestinian, you identify with Palestine.
like, where in the U.S. are you from?
Yeah,
Where in
exactly.
Chicago are you
Born
from?
and raised in Chicago, but originally I'm from Palestine. Like everyone has to know where you come from. But it's true. It's because that's a piece of our identity that we feel like people are trying to take away or people are constantly questioning. So we feel like we have to put that forward from the get-go.
Mine is always the standard. I'm a Muslim, Palestinian, American.
Yeah.
And that's like what it is. I don't think I ever say I'm a woman because I'm just like,
Clearly, like you don't
Well,
feel like you
yeah.
have to like.
yeah, I'm not, unless it's like an essay and they ask you, then I'm like, where do I put it? Where do I fit it in here so it sounds natural?
So many like identities, and it sounds like a run-on sentence.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm
Definitely.
a Muslim, Palestinian woman, American, born and raised in Chicago.
Yeah, definitely. But honestly, that's how you feel like people introduce themselves today.
Yeah.
Like you get like a whole spiel and it's like, wow. Like how are you all of this? But I guess that it is what makes you who you are, right? Like we wouldn't be the people we are if it wasn't for every aspect of our identity and every aspect that we identify with. But so how difficult or how easy do you find to be able to juggle each piece of your identity? Like do you ever feel like you struggle between being Muslim and American or being Palestinian and American or like just different things
Being
on a daily
Palestinian
basis?
and Muslim. you missed that one. but-
Oh, dude, Palestinian and
that's
Muslim.
probably
No,
not as
because
much
that
of a
doesn't really
struggle.
contradict anything, yeah.
Not as much.
Mm.
Honestly, I feel like saying I'm Muslim in the overall general sense is fine. Like it's very accepted that okay, you're Muslim, you wear hijab, but it's just the small details that make it difficult. So like let's say you want to go out and everyone's drinking, that's what makes it difficult. Or
Oh,
you
yeah.
want to go out and it's not the alcohol, but let's say you have to find a place to pray.
Oh.
Like those small details of it is what makes it a little bit more difficult to try and incorporate it, especially if you're the only Muslim or the minority is Muslim, versus like the overall idea of your identity.
Yeah. I feel like for us or for the generation post, like anybody that had immigrant parents that had to come or was raised in a different country and came, I feel like our struggle is very different than the ones our parents had. Like I don't think we struggle so much with our identity. Like it's easier for us to balance things because we were born and raised here. So like personally, I feel like we've been able to take each part of the culture and make it our own culture.
I think that's
you know,
also
or like
because
every piece of the identity.
we identify as Americans more so because we were born and raised here as well. Maybe our parents' generation didn't feel as American because they knew they were immigrants, and they also had, a lot of them had the mindset that this is just temporary, we're gonna end up going back to where
we
came from. Yeah.
But I still feel like we do struggle with our identity because we still don't fit in. Like
Yeah.
we're not fully American,
Yeah.
so like it's hard to, you know, fit in with.
I disagree. What do you mean you're not fully American?
Like
She means in the tendency of
Like,
like
I don't think you're not. This is the issue, I guess, with identity in the U.S. Because there's so many different types of people. That idea of being an American isn't one thing.
I
So-
think she means your typical like maybe partying, drinking, like that
yeah,
stuff.
like your
growing
typical
up.
like societal norms. Like
I think
you're
that's
too
a
like
non-
Palestinian for like white people, and then you're like too not Palestinian for
For
Palestinians.
back home.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just that like you're not.
That's always a struggle with like first generationers. in
But that's what I'm
general.
saying. I think for us growing up in America and still being raised in very cultural homes, you're able to take from each part of your identity and create your own thing.
I agree.
Like we're not. If you compare us to our parents, we're not exactly like our parents. And if you compare us to your regular, typical American, we're not that either. You know, we've kind of found ways to take each
We pick and
piece
choose,
and
I
make
guess.
make us who we are today.
We integrate them all together.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not as easy as we make it seem, though. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, oh, I plan my day around prayer. Like, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, if I have a full day, I'm like, okay, well, where can I sully? Let's
Yeah.
pick this beforehand, so
well,
we're not like.
Like we'll go out
Out of
after
where?
Isha or after
Yeah, like you
Maghrib,
plan.
We'll start
schedule
recording
around
after
it.
Maghrib or Asr.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, because regardless of your identity, you know, the first thing we identify with, and most importantly, is Islam.
Yeah,
So
like
for
if I
us,
had to
it's like
pick
the
one,
main.
that would be
yeah.
the one.
Yeah, that's your priority.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, do you guys feel like your identity has ever held you back in any way? Whether it's social or educational or even at work?
I don't think it's held me back completely, but I do think that it's probably made things a little more difficult.
Which part
or
of
not
your
difficult in the
identity?
sense. Probably being Muslim, I would say.
Really?
Because
I
it's
think being a
outward-
woman.
I was gonna say being a woman as
Really?
well.
I
Yeah.
don't feel like I've ever had to struggle with that. Like being a girl, I don't think I've had instances, alhamdulillah, thus far in my like career in education, where I felt like I've had to do more because I'm a woman. But I just feel like maybe as a Muslim, like just like you said, going out with colleagues, going out with other students, like professors, things like
Yeah.
of that nature.
So is
you
it
have
the
to
social-
find other ways.
Is it the social aspect, or let's say like going to on an interview with a hijab on? What do you think is? Or,
I mean, I don't think wearing the hijab has made things more difficult, but it's always like, oh, now I have to pick out a hijab. The hijab has to match. No, like it's like an extra thing.
I'm talking about like it holding you back, not because like
No, I don't. I'm telling you,
fashion. Your fashion.
like you know, you put an outfit and then you're like, man, I can't find a hijab. No, I mean like. In the social aspect, like having to go a step further to get into contact with professors or colleagues. Like if they go out and you can't necessarily go out with them, it's just you have to find your own avenue to make that relationship. So it's made it in the sense where I've had to put in more work, but I mean, alhamdulillah, I've never felt like it's held me back completely from
Yeah,
anything.
I feel like in my head, I'm like, oh my god, I wear hijabs. I don't know how they're gonna react to me, or am I gonna get this job or this internship because of my hijab? But subhanallah, all these like internships and things I've applied for, like as soon as alhamdulillah I would get accepted, and then like orientation, they have like a hijabi in the newsletter, and, like the orientation papers, and I was like, oh wow, and like they're always so like accommodating and understanding, and I was like, it's always my own fear, but not so much like the people that I work with or you know.
I think my thing is being the token, like Muslim for certain discussions. So like if we're in class, for instance, we were talking about terrorism, so everyone would turn to me and ask me for my opinion.
What's your
like,
idea on
yeah,
terrorism?
and then but what I would say, they would think like all Muslims think what,
Like
you
you're
know what I said?
representing everyone's
Yeah.
thoughts.
And I'm like, oh no, like I have to super formulate this answer. I have to go get it from a sheikh. Like, please don't look at me, or like or saying certain words. Like for example, the word bomb. Like I do not say it, or like every time I say it in my head, I check myself. I'm like, who's around me? Like,
Yeah.
because it's unnatural, like triggers in your head just from being Muslim.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the part of my identity that I feel, especially now that I'm in the workforce, is being a woman, especially in medicine.
Really?
Yeah, so it's not that there aren't enough female doctors, because mashallah there are, and there's it's like more and more that are going into medicine, but like interactions with other colleagues, especially the male ones, and also interaction with like other medical staff, so like the nurses, the RTs and everything like that. So it's just so interesting because when I talk about like my experiences, let's say doing this rotation versus a male were to talk about their experiences, it's very, very different.
Really?
Yes. So especially like when it comes to like doing procedures, unless you have like a super aggressive, outgoing personality as a woman, it's much more difficult to do it, as opposed to like the guys are just like expected, like, oh, you can do this. Versus like I have to go out of my way to be like, no, I want to do this. Let me
like you're able to do it.
Yeah.
Or if you are good at something, everybody's shocked. Like they're like, what?
It's like, oh,
you know the right answer? You're good at this procedure?
Yeah, and I didn't really notice it. I always thought like, no, that's never a part of my identity that's held me back. But I noticed it after like
graduating and stuff.
it. Yeah, like once you're in it.
But the fact that you can notice also means that it's something that happens often.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's impactful enough where it comes to mind and you're like, oh, there's definitely a line between men and women in the medical. So, okay, with that, like with facing those different obstacles with your identity, what are ways that you talk yourself into continuing to do it? Or what are ways that you find you overcome the barrier? So like when someone says that to you or when you notice it, would you, like what's something that you rein in where you're like, okay, expect it, or like how do I get over this?
I mean, it's like a mix of things. So one, I'm a pretty laid back person, but now if I like want to do something, I have to be outspoken about it. So I've learned to become more outspoken.
Oh, okay.
And then I've also learned to let things go or try to address it in a nicer way, I guess. So like if someone were to say something in a certain way, like I'll just try and say it, but other times I'll just let it go.
Yeah.
I kind of put it on a scale. So for instance, let's say my identity of being a Muslim is on one side for wearing the hijab, let's say. And then what's the alternative of that? The alternative is, okay, removing that part of my identity. Is that worth it for me? Is that what I want? No, so then suck it up and keep going. Like, suck up the prejudice, it's gonna happen, keep going. Because the alternative is not something I'm willing to accept. So you're just gonna have to battle through it. Because some stuff, it's not gonna be easy. And that's the truth. Like, you're always gonna be, like, prejudiced against people, are always gonna have stereotypes. You're gonna have to break the walls to get in, but it is what it is. And then you gotta keep doing it so that the next generation and the generation after that don't have to deal with it as much as we have to deal with it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The more you speak up and the more that you go through these barriers and like knock them down, the easier it makes for other people experiencing that. Like other Muslims that will go into the field or a woman,
other
in
Muslim
medicine.
women, Palestinians.
And I've already noticed the change. Like us when we were like teenagers / college versus now, I've noticed that there is a big difference, but obviously it's.
And that's, you guys, that speaks volumes because we see it with Ilhan Omar, we see it with Rashida Tlaib, we saw it with Halima the model, like just other women that have broke down barriers that we never thought achievable for us. And like, you know, they're making their mark and they're making it easier for the next person. But I also just wanted to say that I think when I found myself like in those situations in my master's program or my undergrad program, it would just be like I would have to be in charge of the social gathering or the idea. Yeah, so either I would put myself in that position, or like the people that were really good friends, like the ones that actually cared and took you into consideration, they would say like, oh, okay, let's do this, where it's something that I can do, and then they'll hang out like at a bar after, something like that. You know, like, okay, let's order food, let's eat at school together, and then let's meet with this professor at this time, and then after we could do whatever that we want to do, you know? So it's also nice because people do start taking it into consideration. It's very, not that there aren't racists and prejudice and Islamophobes, of course, but as we get more involved into the professional world, like you guys had said, you'll see that more and more people are a lot more open-minded than you think. Like, they're very willing to accommodate you, to accommodate your beliefs, your ethics, your values. And you should also be the type that does it for others. Yeah, you know, like other faiths and other cultures and stuff.
Yeah, most people are good. That's just something that we always have to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most people are good.
Most people are good.
Yeah.
No, it's always the few that ruin it for the majority. So like that one racist you see or that one racist interaction that you have, and it's like you think now all this like blanketly are racist.
And like how Inara had said, sometimes it's just us in our own heads also. Like it's not even, nobody's even thinking that.
I feel like us in our own head is because of the media itself that plays a role. Like,
you
know what I mean?
Yeah,
I feel like it's the media. We think, oh, the media is the reason why people perceive us this way is because of the media, and like saying like, oh, the media portrays us this way, which is why I think this way about them.
Yeah.
So like, you know, the reason why
Yeah.
I think like trigger words like bomb or terrorist and everybody looking at you,
Yeah.
like where do we get that from? I think that's more media, and
Yeah.
then you automatically assume people are gonna associate that with you.
That's actually interesting that she said that, because usually when you think about the media and misrepresentation, you think what are the effects on other people. But like nobody ever talks about what the effects are on ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you never really hear that, but like listening to you say that, you do understand that there are some words that we should be able to use that we just don't, because we don't want anyone to get the wrong idea or to jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to yet another YouTube video and listening to our thoughts and our opinions on keeping your identity. We would love to hear your thoughts, your opinions. You can reach out to us on social media, but don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you don't already, so you can watch the rest of our March specials. Thank you so much for tuning in.